on Nova Legends podcast, I have my old pal Tim Larkin, who was a great soccer player at Robinson in my class '84, and went to William and Mary. I'm not sure why he went there. A lot of people make that mistake, but we'll have to talk about that. Tim played a little pro soccer back in the early days. It wasn't a defined path for players back then, unfortunately. It's interesting what Tim would have done today. I'm sure we'll talk about that as well. And then it looks like he got into event planning and sports events, and not just the planning, but the architecture and the building, the facilities for short-term events. Worked on huge events like the FIFA World Cup, Salt Lake Olympics. He's worked at a couple of places, Populous and Stewart, but now he's principal at Mesh Overlay Design. As I said, the architect's landscape and event specialist. Some of his clients, the Golf Association, college football playoffs, Churchill Downs, which is interesting to me. Tim, did I get most of that right?
You nailed it, Julian. I'm impressed, man. I would have. You sound better than me, but you nailed it. That's the timeline. That's the career as well. So I appreciate it.
Well, maybe you can hire me for sales, Tim.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
So, well, look, first of all, with we'll get to your company in depth, but is what you do. Oftentimes, we think of sports. Any work in sports is kind of being glamorous. Like, for example, being a lawyer. When you're a sports agent,
Yeah,
it sounds great, but that's not always like the best job in the
yeah,
world because you're worried about these athletes. They could be a little bit of prima donnas.
yeah.
It's very competitive. So even though it's sports, it's not always as glamorous as it seems. Do you ever find that element in what you do? And that yes, you're doing these great events, but at the end of the day, it's logistics, it's planning.
Yeah, you nailed it, Julian. It's the front side of that is like, for instance, I'll be in Louisville next week. I'll be at Churchill Downs next week
Awesome.
planning, right? So when I sit there at Churchill Downs or Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta or SoFi Stadium in LA on a Tuesday, walking around planning, and I look around and realize I'm in a sports facility, an amazing facility, doing my job. I feel pretty lucky, right? It's a really cool day. When I'm grumpy about things, I'm like, am I going down the right career path here? But it's pretty special to be at those places, iconic venues across the world, really, as my job. But the flip side of that, to your point, on game day itself, yeah, I don't see much of the game itself, right? I don't see the national championship game. I don't see parts of the game that most people are sitting at home watching. I did a lot of work at the Super Bowl. I never saw a play, but now I don't work on the Super Bowl any longer, and now I stay home and watch it with my family and do all the Super Bowl things and watch commercials and watch the halftime show. So that side is really fun to do too. But when you're in it, I'm kind of in the bowels of the stadium, making sure things are happening and don't get around the game itself a lot. So you nailed it. It's not as glamorous as it seems.
Well, it's like running a successful company with those kind of clients is glamorous to me.
Yeah,
Do you still get starstruck?
I do. I do. Try not to pick up the camera and kind of pick it up and snap the photo. Um, there's not many athletes that just blow you away, and the three that I've been close to and around, it was Pele, it was Wayne Gretzky, and it was Michael Jordan. And you get in the same room with that type of person or athlete, or it's a different level. So I know the others are amazing, but those three itself, I sort of caught myself a little speechless, a little nervous, all those type of things. So, and then at major events like the Super Bowl, the people that are coming into the building, right, past you, like Mark Wahlberg, for instance. Let's use that example. When he comes to see the Patriots at the Super Bowl, he's not getting a ton of VIP treatment because there's so many VIPs coming. So he sort of just comes shooting through regular spectator entrance with his kids, and it's Marky Mark, right? And you're like, okay, there he goes, and you sort of help him, kind of get along his way. But it's hard not to get starstruck, and I'm a huge sports fan, so I still enjoy that time to be around those type of people. It's incredible.
Is there a certain strategy to get things done when you're around iconic figures like that? With Michael Jordan, it would be hard to talk to him because we've seen him on TV so many times, and he's got a
Yeah.
really big personality. But maybe these guys aren't like that when you're dealing with them business. But you think a lot about how you're going to handle yourself around people like that?
Yeah. You try to, you try to be as professional as you can be and pretend that it's not a big deal to be near them as you're planning for their and someone like Jordan or Pele or Gretzky. I mean, you get back to what I do for a living. We do route maps and constituent route maps for certain constituent groups of an event, right? So the media, they come from the hotel, they park here, they walk in the building here, they go to work here, they do their job, and then they exit kind of the same way. Well, you're doing that for the media, you're doing it for the players, of course, you're doing it for volunteers, whatever. But every once in a while, like we need a plan for Jordan. Like just let's write it down. Let's all be on the same page. So he has someone like Michael would have his own route map that the entire organization would have with them to make sure we got him covered. So he doesn't know it, but behind the scenes, there's a massive plan in place to make sure he sees a professional delivery, right? So you just try to treat it like everybody else, but certain people are a little bit different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tim, when you think about a mesh overlay design, architects, landscape. So you're going to Churchill Downs,
Yeah.
and you're on a Derby day. When you
Yeah.
say architects, are you designing like the temporary facilities that are needed for a big event, or do you do like more permanent type of stuff, or it's the stuff you're designing stuff that's going to be torn down once the event's over?
Yeah, exactly, Julian. You nailed it. The industry's only been around, I believe, for about 30 years. I mean, in the past, so in essence, you take CAD files, digital files of the facility, of the site, and you put it into a plan that's super technical, right? And I'm not a designer by trade, which is ironic. I'm a business owner now and part of the group, but I'm an event operations specialist. But it's kind of nice that we have both sides because
Mhm.
designers can tend to want to get excited about designing, and the ops guys are kind of going, well, if you put it over there, it ain't gonna work, right? We can't get people over this road, or there's a big ditch there, or there's a massive generator or light pole that's not gonna work. So we kind of team up together, but it is the temporary structure. So a good example would be let's use college football playoff. The press box at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta is 250 people. It's beautiful. It's perfect, right? For a Sunday Falcons game. It's perfectly fine and perfectly suited to host the media. Well, for CFP, we need 1,500 seats for media, right? So, and that's just CFP. That's not even the Super Bowl. That's another whole level. So we had to design temporary locations for the media to do their job. So there's a media workroom it's either in a tent structure or within a kind of a supply area or within the stadium. And then we build out temporary seats for them as well in the stands. So we kill ticket sales, which no one loves, but it's part of delivering a mega event. And then that seating needs to have power and IT associated with it, right? Just like a press box. So we build temporary structures for the media in the stands so they can then do their job to deliver the reporting on the game. So
Yeah.
you nailed it. It's all temporary stuff.
So, like for example, we speak of the Preakness a lot.
Yeah.
The industry is 30 years old. You're saying,
Yeah.
I guess, at least on a large scale. So before you guys, companies like you that were tailored to this kind of service were around,
Yeah.
like the Preakness would hire their own little local contractors to do it
Yeah.
themselves. Or they had to use logistical people that were probably inundated with this work the whole year instead of being able to
Yeah.
do other things for Maryland Racing, whatever. So is that the way it is? Is that before you guys, others tried to do this on their own, and you guys became almost like a middleman to handle this and make sure all the inspections are done, so it doesn't fall down. All the other
Well,
things that the Preakness may have had to do by itself before you guys were in
yeah.
business.
Yeah. Are you sure you haven't done this before, Julian? Because you're
I'm a
literally,
spy.
yeah, exactly. I mean, the Derby race 14 or race 12 of the Derby, right? I'm learning there's 14 races on Derby Day, not just Derby, and there's
Yeah.
14 races on Oaks Day. But the horses are going to go, and they're going to kick off the ball for CFP championship game, regardless if my firm's involved in the planning or not. And it happened in the past; it's going to happen in the future. Um, but certain organizations now, the NFL sort of started it by using a service like ours. If you want to if you want to feel good about your security plan, your delivery plan, and have the budget to develop a full master plan of your event, that's when you would call someone like us to take it kind of to the next level. I grew up not in this world. I grew up just like I'd be the person with in a golf cart and a radio and a hammer and running around getting the entries ready for patrons to come through, and it's done all the time that way. We don't work on 10K races, but we work on Churchill Downs and the Final Four and CFP and things like that. And the other piece, Julian, that you nailed, which is not typical at the Derby and Churchill Downs, it's when the events move every year.
Mhm.
That's when we really are beneficial, right? Or they're pure temporary.
Like the U.S.
So
Open golf, it could be at a different place.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. It moves every year, or even the college football playoff, Final Four, and the Super Bowl moves every year, and you get to a stadium, and the stadium goes, "Oh, we host the Peach Bowl and we host the Falcons. We're good." And you kind of like, well, the list of things that CFP requires is a different thing, and it takes a little while to work through that with the stadiums. They're amazing people, and once you get to know them, but they're a little defensive early on, like, why do we need this element of planning? And then once we go through it with them and get a chance to work with them, it typically is an amazing relationship, and we come out the back end, and there's a 40-page document, Julian. It's a set of plans that goes from the site all the way down to the stadium, every level of the stadium, and then enlargements of key areas, right? So it's sort of the documented truth for the event. And ironically, when we finish, there's times the stadium or we'll be like, "Hey, can we have that?" It's cool and it works, and it's a professional representation of their facility, right? So it's a good relationship in the end.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Tim, how comprehensive are your services? Like, does it go to hospitality as well, or I mean, where do your services and another type of contractors or type of service providers fill in?
Yeah, it's a great question, and hospitality is a perfect one. We're not, and we don't pretend to be a really high-end party planner. Um, the hospitality areas typically we would put a fence around that. Well, you'd say where it's going to go, which parking lot or which area, put a fence around it, make sure there's power and IT available for them. Work with the tent vendor to make sure, is it a double decker, triple decker, what type of tent structure it is, what type of flooring, the timing of that build, when it's built, when it's coming down. And then we turn it over to people who do things a lot better than we do in terms of the decor. So there's all kinds of other contractors that are involved in the layers of delivering, especially hospitality. That's a really good example. Media as well. Sometimes there's very specific um, media areas, media workrooms that require certain IT and things like that. We sort of just kind of get the space ready for them, and then let them do their thing.
Yeah, I love your industry also because it seems like that AI would not be a threat to you. AI can only help you become more efficient. Is that
Then
true?
you nailed it.
Yeah.
We At first we're a little nervous about it, and we have well, one of my business partners is just sort of lives in that world, and he brought it up a couple years ago, and I was a little bit nervous about it, but to your point, we're now just using it, and we're just starting to. We're using it to get us to a place more efficiently. But the experience of where things actually go on a site and how they are interconnected with other plans, other parts of the plan, still takes human experience, right? So we're in a good spot. But who knows what the future is? But man, he kind of listed out to AI what he wanted to see in a hospitality structure, and it just spit this. this plan out that we're like, well, we'll use that one, you know.
Yeah.
But it's I don't know what the future is exactly, but it's we're using it. But right now, it's not a threat to us actually still doing our job, which is nice so far.
Yeah, even if it helps with design and even if it helps with some of the planning, you
Yeah,
still have to execute. And it's look and that takes people and accountability and all those things, right? So it seems to me AI is most a threat where you know where it's going to you know what it's going to replace. It seems like
exactly.
if you're still trying to figure out what it's going to replace, then you have to
Yeah,
you have some time, I would think.
yeah, exactly.
But we'll see. What about big like consulting type firms? You know, so my industry, I
Yeah,
don't know if you know this, Tim, but I sell to law firms. I sell e-discovery, litigation technology. You know,
yeah,
so law firms get a big case.
yeah,
They can handle this stuff in house, but generally, a company like my company will go out and get the data, host the data, provide
yeah,
temporary to help review data if they need that. Um, and so it used to be an industry where the mom and pops and the local providers had an advantage over the nationals.
yeah,
But, in the last 10, 15 years, as the business has gotten more technical and more electronic, the big consulting groups have been a threat to us. And, they're here to stay. Even in the smaller companies all merged and they're really big now as well.
yeah.
Is that a factor in your business in that there are some huge entities that hey, this mesh overlay design is doing well. We gotta get a piece of that.
Yeah, yeah. There's one company, Populous, that it's where I grew up and started in event overlay. They're a permanent architecture firm. I mean, Camden Yards is a perfect example, which you and I are near and dear to folks who live in
Yeah.
Nova. The first Camden Yards was that first old school, new school, brick based facility that had every angle to home plate and had the warehouse in the back. Populous did that design,
Hmm.
and they're based in Kansas City. They're an amazing sports architecture firm. And if you Google half the baseball stadiums in our country and half the football stadiums in our country, and now overseas, Populous is a sports architect designer. Well, they started this event overlay division, and so based in Denver, Colorado, and that's where I was. And so they're the biggest player in my field. Populous event division. They do the Super Bowl and the Final Four and World Cups and things like that. So we're kind of a smaller fish. We're friends with them, and we compete at times, for projects. But we kind of have our stuff, and they have their big things. And but after that, there's not a lot. So we would be kind of the small one that's kind of bouncing around, and people might be going either very cool or a little bit of a threat. Which one or both, right?
Yeah.
So our firm we're tiny. We're 7 people strong at the moment. We should be 10 people strong based on our workload right now. And I don't know and I'm going on the back end of this, right? I'm 58. And so my business partners, there's a 30-year-old who's just having babies and two 40-year-olds and two 50-year-olds. And so trying to get us all thinking the same way is a challenge. But you know, I, we who knows what the future is? Are we 10 people? Are we 20 people? Populous is events division is probably 30 or 40. So someday, we'd probably have to push up to that level. But right now we're a small little nimble group. We're mom and pop a little bit, I'd have to say.
Yeah, I think the mix of ages is great. I mean, I
Yeah,
think because the young folks can do some things that we can't do, but yet we have experience and
yeah.
there are things that we've learned through the years. Um, Tim, when you guys started Mesh Overlay, did you feel like you added something that was new and different and it gives you a little advantage over Populous or some of the other would-be competitors?
Yeah, yeah, there's some, and it's really design based, Julian, and it's what I don't do that. I sell that and I market that and I operate that. But our diagrams, let's call them diagrams, really what they are. The level of detail that's in them and how we get to that level of detail, the efficiency in doing so, in my opinion, is the best available. It's I mean, with an overlay diagram or any diagram, any plan, if it's not readable and usable, it's people are going to take it and put it on the desk and walk away. And this isn't helping me. So the key is these diagrams and these plans need to tell a story. They need to be readable. They need to help people like the ops folks or the facilities guys or the guy dropping generators or the gal dropping tent structures. If it's not readable and useful, it's useless. So we really try to make it as simple as possible. A very technical plan has to be simple and readable, and I think ours is a different level. We'll see what other people think about that, and we'll see what the future is, and competitors and things like that. But I find our plan to be incredibly user friendly and readable, and our clients so far, the ones that we have, seem to be very happy with it. So that would be the difference, you know. And Julian, for me, I finally got a chance to be a part of that. Like my other firms, I was sort of down the chain. I took the plans and I did my job, which is great. But now I get to sit in a room and go, why don't we do it? Why don't it should look like this? It should, you got, those colors got to be different. We got to tone down the saturation of that, or we need to label those things. We label everything. So you open up a drawing, Julian, and it's a site plan of Churchill Downs, and the streets don't have names on them. And you're in a big meeting with the police, and they're like, we'll come down this road. And they're like, what's the name of that road? And everyone's looking around. Well, our diagrams have that name of that road. I mean, and that's just one little thing, you got to label everything. So when you're in a meeting, what's on that screen in front of you, that is real, and that's what we're doing. So I don't know. That's a long-winded answer. I apologize for that, but
No, it was great. So do you feel like your experience and your common sense of talking to the customer, being at the events, being in a smaller entity gives you a chance to really give some value add to your designers, whereas in a big company, go sell
yeah,
this. So we, get the client, tell the client why they need our services. Now you could be more interactive and kind of satisfy the client better.
100%, 100%. And even so, I end up being as we have designers doing their thing. I'm a project manager in the end for let's just college football playoff and Churchill Downs. And we've always said when as we're developing these diagram sets, like this is yours, and it's everyone in this room's actually. We're producing it. We'll help you get there, but this is you own this. This is your document, and we're here to support you through that. So my key contact at both those facilities, I think, really appreciates that. There's times people would stomp in and say, "Let's do it this way. Here's the diagrams. Let's go." And trust me, which is a way to go. And there's part of that in us, but ours is more like, let's do this together. And it's yours, and
Yeah.
there's times that we're like, oh, the mesh diagram says this, or the mesh diagram's wrong. And you're like, okay, well, if it's wrong, that means it's wrong for all of us. Like,
Yeah.
let's make it right. So when it's wrong, that's fine with us. We want it to be wrong 2 months before the event, and now we'll fix it. Now we're all together fixing it. So it's the ownership of that document or this plan
Mhm.
is really important to set that early on, that it's owned by the event owner, and
Yeah.
we're just part of it.
Yeah. Well, Tim, it sounds great. All of it sounds great. Amazing concept. And I know I can tell you guys got a huge payday on the horizon. But let's pivot a little bit to soccer.
Yeah,
First of all, overall, when you look at soccer now, we turn on TV. You can watch the English Premier League in the morning. We got the in the afternoon. I can watch the French leagues. Saturday and Sunday you can watch games. You can watch the Mexican League during the week. Got the MLS if you're into that.
yeah,
I mean, soccer has gotten so into our sports consciousness now. Whereas we thought you guys were weird. You'd walk around school with those hacky sacks.
yeah,
You all had really weird haircuts. There was like Farrah Fawcett in the front and like a
yeah.
lacrosse in the back, like
It was looking
NASCAR in the
good.
back. I mean, you guys were out there to us.
Yeah,
I played soccer. I was a good player. My sister was a good player, but I just, it was to me, it was football or basketball, or they just seemed cooler. But
yeah,
it's changed now. I mean, everyone's playing soccer. It's cool to play soccer. The creativity and the fact you don't get these dumb comments like, "Oh, the score is 1-0." What do I really watch?
right.
People understand the beautiful game
Yeah,
and all those things. Do you have regret that you grew up and played at a time before that consciousness was here? I mean, there were almost no opportunities for you. I mean, you were able to play at William and Mary, but 10 years earlier, it would have been tougher to even play. I mean,
yeah.
you got there. So when you look back on your career in soccer, do you have regret about the way soccer was back then?
Yeah, a little bit. You wonder what you could have done professionally afterwards, but the game is even this job I have now, it's sort of helped me get to this place. So I don't know. I had two older brothers, Julian. My family was, and I had a little sister as well. It was football, baseball, basketball, and I did all those things. Somehow in Kings Park West, they started some 5-year-old soccer league, and we walked on down the street, and I was a little dude, a skinny dude. So little and skinny doesn't really match up to a lot of sports, right? So somehow I got out there and scored a couple of goals, as I've been told or remember a little bit, and went, okay, this is something that I can be pretty good at, right? And dude, it's funny thing about this Kings Park West League. I mean, Mo Morgan was in it, Keith Stetzer was in it, Matt Christian was in it, Scott McCrite was in it, all these other, Robinson people. We all played that in this little league, and from there, I stumbled into an amazing, I played for a Braddock Road club that had an amazing group of
That
kids.
was the
That,
Blue Jays, right, Tim?
yeah, Julian, as I think back on it, I talked to my stepson, who was a really good lacrosse player, but wasn't sure about D1, and he really wanted to go to a big school, and D1 lacrosse didn't match up well. But I tell him how many D1 soccer players at the time, this kind of circles back to your opening question, is in one way, I think we were D1 players because there weren't that many players at that time. But the other side of it is, maybe not. Maybe in that moment in time, we were those type of players. And there was 10 D1 players, I think, on one little club team. And um, my stepson's like, well, not really. I'm like, and I just started listening. I'm like, okay, UNC, three at George Mason, two at South Carolina, William Mary, UVA. I'm like, no, there's 10 or 12 of us that were able to play the game one more step, right? Like the college run was amazing. Like I wouldn't trade it for anything to play college soccer. I was really fortunate. So, but yeah, and then there was no outdoor league. And NASL had gone away. It kind of filtered around. The precursor to MLS was sort of doing its thing, but the folks graduated in 1988, 1989. We did not have a lot of outdoor opportunity to play the game.
Speaking of Blue Jays, I didn't hear from Tommy Nicholson this
Yeah,
week, and I assume it's because UNC doesn't belong in the tournament. Because I tend to hear from him when they're doing great things. It's strange, but you're also talking about the number of people that play Division One soccer.
yeah.
Thinking about the number of Division One coaches on the women's side, we got Jill, we got Ed
Right.
Robinson, we got Jill, we got Barb, we got Sue Patberg, um, we Sue Montaigne, in case you,
Yeah.
and then I know there's more,
Oh,
and I think in some ways you're in the wrong era, but you were
yeah.
at the right places because you were at Northern Virginia,
Yes.
completely dominant area, especially with women,
Yeah.
but with men too. Even though St. Louis was big, I think Long Island was big, New
Yeah.
Jersey was big in soccer.
Yeah. Nailed it. Yeah.
Women, we were probably number one.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was hard to believe, but you're also at William and Mary, which another thought leadership, not just soccer, but coaching with Tomlin and Julie Cunningham.
Yeah.
There's others at William and Mary. So you kind of were at the right places at the right time, maybe just the wrong era.
Yeah. No, the William Mary thing is funny, Julian. I didn't know what I wanted, where I wanted to go to school, and I soccer enabled me to go to William Mary, and I was like, it's really not my type of school. I want to go to Madison. I would love to go to UVA, but that wasn't going to be an option for me. And my parents and my high school soccer coach sat me down and said, "You need to go to William and Mary. This is you're using soccer for an incredible opportunity, and thank goodness they talked an 18-year-old into the right decision. And I mean, to go, my teammates and to play Division One soccer and at William Mary, we were very good. I mean, when we played UVA and Clemson and Duke, different story. That was when the wake up call for us would come. But other than that, playing Division One soccer and coming out with a record of 14-5 and making the tournament and stuff was amazing. But the women's team, Julian, at William Mary, my year, right? In walks Megan McCarthy, Jill Ellis, Julie Cunningham, and three girls from New Jersey. And I mean, they were top five in the country immediately, right? Like, and I don't think there were scholarships for women at the time, probably. I don't think they were. I mean, they almost just walked. William Mary just they got these legends, these Hall of Famers, these elite athletes and women just walked in their door, and it was like we would watch them play, they would watch us play. I was pretty fortunate to be around that women's team during my 4 years. Kathy Carter went there too from
Yeah.
Robinson. I think she was a freshman when I was a senior, but
And she's in a similar space.
she is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she does.
Yeah.
I want to go back to get to William Mary in a minute, but real quickly about Robinson. What are your memories of your Robinson years? We talked offline briefly about our recruiting. I mean,
Yeah.
recruiting, our reunion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but when you look back, for me, to me, it's complicated. But I feel like it was a wonderful place, and we had wonderful people that we
Yeah.
went to school with our class. But what about you? What do you think?
Yeah. I loved it. It was a big school, and you can kind of get lost in that piece a little bit. That was sort of the one thing that either you were hearing from your folks or you understood. But my best friends to today are still the guys I actually went to elementary school with Keith Stetzer and Mel Morgan and Matt Christian and Scott McCright and those guys. And so it was amazing. But where our connection probably started was freshman basketball. And
Yeah.
um, of 12 guys on the team, I was number 11, half or 12. But you and Mo and Matt DeFrank and Brett Hopkins but that experience being on that freshman basketball team was amazing. And I'll never forget it. Now, JV time kind of rolled around. You and I talked about the path you took or athletically and the path I took. It was pretty clear that the soccer field was a better place for me to excel than the basketball court. But I, you know, I love being that guy on the basketball team that knew you weren't going to play a lot, but took charges and cheered my teammates on, and all those things that it's part of being on a team, but not
Mhm.
being a starter or even playing 2 minutes a game, 1 minute a game, and it was low. But I loved every minute of it. But it was time to move on after freshman year. But basketball was an amazing sport and one that I loved. It just wasn't quite good enough to finish it in school.
Yeah, it's funny, Tim. I remember you as a good player. We had a big roster that year, and I was sixth man on that freshman team.
Yeah,
You would use me and Gilbertson
yeah,
interchangeably. I do
yeah,
remember that, and so many of the kids did not stick with basketball. A lot of
yeah,
the we had a lot of good athletes like yourself and Mo, and
yeah,
everyone could play. And I think
yeah,
we ended up choosing what the best path for us was.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
was between football and basketball, but I didn't grow until late, so
yeah,
basketball was safer.
yeah,
But I do think a lot of what I did in life emanated from my basketball. Was no by no means a star player, but the relationships I formed on the court with our team, Coach Peterson, Coach Boyer, Coach McKeag later on, and then
yeah,
the guys I played against, and then being a referee and a coach,
yeah,
and you have the same thing. You played at William Mary, you have relationships
yeah,
there, and then it's those relationships are so important because we just share so much in common. Tim, when you went to William and Mary, it's known as a really intense place, and it's
Yeah,
interesting because almost everyone I knew who went there is very successful.
sure.
And it has like a work ethic, kind of like Notre Dame,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
people pride themselves on how hard they work. Whereas at
yeah,
UVA, there's a little arrogance, like we got in. I mean, we're here. Let the games begin. Where William and Mary, it's like we want to prove.
yeah.
We're good. We're better. We're better than UVA. Did you find that to be true that there was a certain work ethic there?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we all still, most of us looked across the state to Charlottesville, and the academics were the same, if not better. And you had a Division I football team and a basketball team, so we're always envious of that. But at the same time, yeah, I got there, Julian, and I thought I knew how to study. I thought if I studied 2 or 3 hours for a test, like I did it in high school, I'd be fine. And my first test did not go
Mhm.
well at all. To the point where my parents weren't even mad at me because they saw that I was shocked by the grade. Like, oh my goodness, I need this is not what I'm used to. And so, yeah, I mean, and the classes are small. I was just my stepson goes to Carolina and his girlfriend goes to NC State. We were talking about class size just the other day. I mean, the biggest class at William Mary would have been 150 people, but 80% of the classes were 25, 30 people. And yeah, so when the bell curve goes with 30 people, someone at William Mary is getting 100. It's just gonna so that's the bell curve. It started at 100. Okay, great. That didn't help me out. So yeah, it was super intense. And I was a soccer player, and you start soccer like you get there 2 weeks before school starts, and you're sort of okay, I got this. And it was a wake up call, you know. But then you found a way. The new thing is now I got to get through. Okay, now I want to play soccer. That's a big part of why I'm here. But I got to graduate, so I got to figure this out. You know, I got to figure out. But it was B's and C's, Julian. After that, you know, that's what it was, and it was a tough place to to survive academically if it was something you weren't used to. But
It's a really tough place. I mean,
yeah,
I think it's an amazing school because
yeah,
if you can handle it, a lot of kids they
yeah,
would go there and they would lose confidence and it might not go well. But I think if you buy in and you're a competitor, so
yeah,
you're going to find a way to succeed.
yeah.
So, but it's really tough. Tell us a little bit about your college soccer career. I don't know anything about it. I know you were a good
Sure.
player. I've seen
Yeah,
pictures of you playing. Who was your coach and did you
yeah.
play against a lot of guys that you knew really well?
Yeah, legendary coach. His name's Al Albert. He's now retired. He's still at the university at William Mary,
Is that right? Wow.
yeah,
50 years,
doing
40 years ago?
yeah
Yeah.
doing fundraising. It's and a couple. There was a run of Robinson kids that went to William Mary to play soccer, and Robbie Olson was one. I don't know,
Mhm.
Robbie played for the Washington Diplomats at some point,
Yeah,
right? But
that's right.
and then Scott Repke and Adam Hogue
Yeah.
were before me. Then it was me, and then John Tuttle was
Tuttle.
a year
Yeah.
behind
He
me,
was a
right?
real good player
So
too, right?
yeah, yeah. This
Yeah.
run of they called us Ramheads actually, which is kind of funny. This Robinson run into this William Mary soccer program was pretty cool, and it was big time. I mean, I wasn't a high recruit. You come in with 7 or 8 freshmen every year. And I guarantee you at the back end of that, 4 years later, there's 2 or 3 of you left. You either leave because usually it's a lack of playing time or you change your interest. I mean, if you're playing a whole bunch and scoring goals, I don't think you lose interest. This is me just talking about
Yeah.
people who do leave it eventually. It just, then your sophomore year, 7 new freshmen come in. And every one of those freshmen at a place like William Mary Soccer or obviously UVA's, were the captains of their high school team, on the state team, Olympic development, all those guys, right? Because there's so many soccer players now. So now you have a new batch of guys you gotta fight with. So my freshman year, this is funny. I scored a goal first game I ever played at William Mary. Didn't start, of course. Got
This
we
is
got
gonna be easy, man. I got a
yeah
goal
we got
freshman.
we got spanked. We played a school called Hartwick. They were top 10 in the country. I think we
I
lost.
never heard of it.
Yeah, it's upstate New York. strange little soccer program, right? That they probably, I think they even won a national championship in the 70s or 80s. But so they come in and we sort of got smoked. I think we lost 5-3, which is a great soccer score, as we talked about earlier. But I got in the game and I scored a goal, right? And wow, that was my parents were there. So someone got hurt, and I started the second game as a freshman. And then I was sort of in and out of the lineup as a freshman, but made I was the rookie of the year, right? Whatever that is, right?
Wow.
And then it sort of progressed to my senior year. I was the captain of the team, so kind of a lunch pail captain, though. I wasn't the best player on the team by any means, but as a senior, and I've been there a long time and well respected, and so it was an amazing 4 years for me. And my teammates are after those Robinson guys I mentioned, the guys from my soccer team are, we still hit golf balls once a year. We meet or whatever. An amazing experience. I wouldn't trade for anything. And I was getting better too. Like
Mm.
you're a kid, you don't know you're getting better. You're still just, oh, I'm just doing my thing. So I was getting better, and I think a lot of people. I don't know if it was expected for me to be the captain of the team by the time I'm a senior at William Mary. That really wasn't the plan for anyone. But the fact that and you voted that by your teammates, which is pretty cool. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I had an amazing 4 years. We made the tournament one time. We lost to Mason numerous times to not make the tournament.
Was that a
But
rivalry? The green
what's
and
it?
gold rivalry?
Oh, huge, huge. They didn't like us. We didn't like them. And you knew them very well. I mean, so I played at Mason twice. So you play them every year, home and away. So my freshman year and junior year were up there at it was new then, the big soccer facility or off of 123, the
Yeah.
big journey facility. So my parents could come, my brothers could come, my sister could come, but we lost both times. So
Mm.
we lost 3-2-1 my junior year, and if Julian, all we needed to do was tie Mason to go to the tournament, and we're up. I think we're up 1-0 with 15, 20 minutes to go, and we lose 2-1. So
Mm.
it doesn't bother me, as you can tell. It hasn't really stuck in my yeah. But long-winded answer. I was very fortunate to get to William Mary and play, and I took advantage of it, I guess, and played for 4 years. So it was really cool.
Did um the big losses in high school, do they stick with you too, or just the college losses?
No, they do too. I mean, Lake Braddock was a problem. Tommy Nicholson and the boys at Lake Braddock were a problem for us, and we finally got through them. And then our senior year, Julian, I think we lost to Woodson. I'm like, okay, great, and it was always in the regional final, right? So we kill each other in districts, and then we play in a district tournament, and you could win that, but you had to win the regional to go to states. And every regional for my 4 years was, you know, Robinson and Lake Braddock or Robinson and Woodson. So, the Oaktons and the Washington Lees and the whatevers of the world weren't really part of this regional plan. Soccer was in these two or three schools in the 80s. It's changed immensely now, but yeah.
It's
So I
funny. I go to
do.
random soccer games. I love high school soccer now.
Yeah.
I was giving you a hard time about soccer before, but I go to random games all year. I just love it. I'll see George Marutzis at a random game. We love watching high school soccer. Just real quickly, William and Mary, just to end that up. Did they have the same commitment Division One soccer would have today? I would imagine it's probably more like Division Three today. Or
Yeah.
were you training all the time in off season like they do today?
Somewhere in the middle.
You know,
We off season was we had a certain amount of days that we could play officially in things. So we would go to off season tournaments, and we trained, we lifted weights, but not what they do today.
mm,
It's somewhere in between. But that the off season is when I got to play against Tab Ramos and John Harkes and these off season tournaments. That's when sometimes you played against the best players you ever played against, right? So that
yeah.
was pretty cool.
They're doing a lot today. They're having these kids playing like the USL two or whatever in the summer
Mhm.
or even US one. So it's a good opportunity for them. So
Yeah.
that still remains. So Tim, I want to talk a little bit about the FIFA World Cup. That was 94, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That was an important time for me because my sister was a really good player, and I played soccer, but soccer wasn't on TV. So I'd catch a couple diplomat games through the years. Everyone was at the play game at the time at
Yeah,
Woodson, but I didn't. Or was it RF? It was RFK.
yeah,
But anyway, that was the World Cup that Roger Miller did his dance in America.
yeah,
It was also for Cameroon. He was a
yeah.
41-year-old guy that did not want to play. They made him play. The president of the country grabbed him from the island of Reunion, and he started the goal line. The goal line. I mean, the goal celebration
Yeah,
was born internationally then. But anyway, that was also Maradona's World Cup.
yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the '94 World Cup. That must have been a very special time for you.
Incredible. Incredible. I mean, I didn't really know. Um, I played at William Mary. I played 2 years of indoor professional soccer, and then I was like, oh, what do I do now? And boom, World Cup, the biggest sporting event in the world is going to be in America. And their headquarters were at the time in Washington, D.C. They eventually moved to Los Angeles, but so I just knocked on that door and said, um, I want to work for you, right? And so it went from, you know, volunteer to intern to eventually getting a job. Luckily, I got a job, my final job. I was an intern in government relations. That was pretty cool. All the federal requirements to host an international event that was going on here. But I got into the stadium operations department. And I'm like, that's me, stadium ops. Let's go do this. So, it to this day, it's probably the event I remember the most that I've ever worked on. And now I've done this for 30 years now, whatever the number is. So, amazing experience. I have a really good story, Julian. You got a second? I tell you the
No,
story.
I got as much time as you need.
Yeah. So, I was just trying to think about some stuff that sort of I remember in the event world. So it's Mexico playing Ireland in Orlando. I think it's the game. It's super hot. And I'm on the field with this big headset on. Again, I'm a kid. I'm like, I'll do whatever I'm told to do. And I was sort of helping get the teams organized for introductions, right? Which teams just don't walk out and do introductions, right? There's a whole thing behind it, right? So we're there and it's super hot. And we get Ireland out of the tunnel and they're in this little shade structure. And Mexico's not coming out. And Ireland's like, well, we're not going out in the sun until they're out of their locker room. And the TV guys are freaking out. It's on this headset, and they're like, Mexico's got to come out. And they're not coming out. And there's like every team is assigned a liaison who speaks both languages, right? And so I look down this corridor, and the Mexican team liaison, is just sort of backed up in the corner, and she's not really doing much at the time. And so finally, in my headset, someone says, Larkin, go get Mexico out, get them out now. And I'm like, oh my, okay, that's not my job. I don't even know what I'm doing. So I knock on the locker room door, nothing. I open the door and they're in there and they're still just talking. And I'm kind of like, we need to go now. I do my thing. They're like, they sort of, okay, right. And they get out and I back out of the locker room, and as Mexico comes out, I think two of their players basically shove me in the chest, like, get out, get out of the way. Don't ever talk to us like that again. But I did my job, right? But that was, I mean, I'm like, why am I the guy knocking on this Mexican door? But it was about, for everyone else watching on TV, the clock was ticking for this introduction. And so that's the behind the scenes of not super glamorous when Mexican national team players are shoving you in the chest for telling them it's time to go.
Those are probably huge superstars in Mexico, and you had no idea who you're
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. I was just getting in trouble, man. I was trying to do my job, so it was funny.
Tim, how important was that '94 World Cup to U.S. soccer? I know I mentioned the Roger Miller dance, so that
Yeah,
it had an effect on me. But generally, was that a seminal moment in U.S. soccer?
it was. I mean, people that know the game will probably forget the guys on our team were college kids. I mean, they were the forebearers of U.S. soccer now. I mean, John Harkes and Tab Ramos and Tony Meola and Alexi Lalas and Peter Vermes. I'll just keep going, right? The cool part for me is they're essentially our age, right? A little bit younger, but Bruce Murray was on that team, and
Hmm.
who's our age. Um, and they were college kids essentially playing against professional grown men from other countries, and they held their own to the point where they beat Colombia in a very historic game for multiple reasons. I think they beat Switzerland. Anyways, progressed to the second round and then lost to Brazil on 4th of July up in San Francisco. And I think kids at that point go, "Whoa, Americans can hang, Americans can do this." So those now, when we played elite teams at that time, we weren't ready for a World Cup final or a World Cup semi or a World Cup quarter.
We're maybe still not, Tim.
You're still not there, exactly. But those players, um, how they held their own, was to me amazing and amazingly cool. And I'm fortunate that I sort of lived in their world a little bit. They're my age. I was on the field with a couple of those guys here and there. Nowhere near their level of play, but to be sort of around them was pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Tim, this has been great. I wanted to ask you a last question. Tell us a little bit about your family, if you don't mind, and just tell us. I know you're living in Raleigh. What's your world like down there?
Yeah, Julian, thanks for asking. Yeah, got three kids, two stepsons, and a little girl. My stepsons are one's a sophomore at Carolina, and we live in Raleigh, so he's close to mom, which is nice that she liked that. My other stepson's a senior in high school, going to go to App State, stay in the
Hmm,
state, and go
awesome.
to go to App State. We're super pumped about that. And then I have a little girl who's 11, Caitlin, who's a soccer player. So
Awesome.
that's pretty cool. It's funny, based on the career path that I chose. I was just moving and moving and moving from World Cup 94 to the Atlanta 96 to Salt Lake City 2002 to South Africa to Qatar. I was just moving and moving and moving and didn't find that partner in life for a while. So I got married late in my 40s, mid 40s.
Hmm,
So my wife had been married before, brought two little awesome rugrats with her who I met them when they were 3 and 5 and got married when they were 7 and 8 type thing, and
yeah.
then we added Caitlin to the mix. So my life went from 0 to 100 from a kid's perspective. But we all met in Colorado. All three kids were born there. Um, but we kind of wanted a new start and a fresh start, and I knew I loved the East Coast. I miss Colorado dearly. I miss being on my snowboard. I miss hiking and things. But there's things called airplanes, so we can still go back. But Raleigh, we live in Apex outside of Raleigh, has
Yeah, I
been
mean,
an amazing place to raise kids. And my wife, who's in Midwest, she went to Wisconsin. She's completely embraced the East Coast, and man, like we're at Smithsonian and Civil War sites and going to the beach and skiing on the East Coast. We're enjoying. I'm really enjoying. I'm 4 hours from home now, and my mom's still there, and my little sister and I have a brother there. So bunch of friends. I got to go to our reunion, which in the past would have been an airplane flight. So feel really fortunate to be where we're at.
yeah. Well, great, Tim. It was good seeing. It was great seeing you, and I haven't seen Mo since high school. I
Yeah.
hadn't seen. Keith Stetcher may have come to one of the reunions, but
Yeah.
uh, all such good guys. It was great to see. I just wish again it went by so fast, and I should have done the other events that week. But next time you're in town, let me know.
Yeah.
We didn't even get to Richard Jewell. I forgot you were at the '96
Yes.
Olympics too. But yeah, next time you're in town, let's get together, man. This has been great. I mean, your business sounds amazing. Your work sounds fascinating. Again, I'm sure the day of the event it might not be so fascinating for you, but what a great business idea, and it's just amazing the things you've accomplished, man. So I'm glad you took the time to talk to me. This has been great. So let's do a better job keeping in touch.
That sounds great, Julian. Thanks for the time, man. I really appreciate it. It's great seeing you, and I'm humbled to be on this podcast with you. So it's been wonderful. And next time I'm in Nova, we'll grab a beer or a cup of coffee or something.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold you to that, and it was thanks for the kind words as well.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
worries.
All right, Tim. Have a good day, man.
All right,
All right, good to
bye-bye.
see you, bro.